Hey folks, today we're talking video lighting and in particular this small accent light from Aputure. Welcome to Sea Wild Earth, and today we're taking a closer look at the Amaran Al F7. Now before we get into it, I just want to say a big thank you to Jane from Liverpool in the UK who sent me this pretty amazing beanie. Even though I'm very happy to live out here in Okinawa, Japan, it's nice to have a reminder sent from home. So cheers again, Jane. I will wear it with pride, even if it is a little bit hot under these under the studio lightings. But anyway, let's get into it. We're all about lighting today. Now, whilst this light itself is actually discontinued, you can actually find it on eBay for around about 80 to 110 bucks US. I've been using it for a few years now and I absolutely love it to pieces. But let's get a look into it and see how it could potentially serve you, and I'll be showing you and explaining to you how it certainly serves me. As with most products that come from Aputure, they ship with these nice padded little bags, but inside you've got some pretty cool little additional accessories as well. Okay, now for one we have this quite sturdy little ball head that comes with the unit, and that also then comes with one of the inserts for the thread adapters, either the 3/8/16 or the adjustment down to 1/4 20. Alright, there you go there. Then also we have a USB-C adapter, okay, for powering the light, and also a couple of diffusion panels of varying opaqueness. I generally tend to use this one for my wildlife stuff out in the jungles. And then of course we have the light itself. Now the light itself weighs in at just 260 grams. The controls are very simple. It is a panel of 256 individual LEDs, and the powers, as I mentioned, you have an option to change the Kelvin temperature from a very warm 3200 Kelvin all the way up to a very blue 9500 Kelvin, and those are you can change that in increments of 100 Kelvin at a time. Now what I normally do when I'm using this particular light is I will do a white balance using an 18% grey card, using the key light that I'm using for that scene, and then I will either set these according to the reading that I get from that particular white balance to complement that light, or I will adjust the Kelvin to create accent lights depending on the aesthetic of the scene that I wish to create. For mounting, couldn't be any simpler. This particular light has 3 1/4 20 thread mounts here on 3 sides of the light, 2 and 3, because the fourth side is taken up with the main controls of the light. And what I generally tend to do, because I'm filming at night in the jungles of Okinawa, I will take the thread adapter that comes with the light, and I'll put that onto this C-clamp. I then put the included ball head onto that C-clamp, and you've probably guessed it by now. I will then screw the light to that. Okay, and then I have a light that is adaptable, where I can then just clip it to a tree, a branch, a post, or wherever I want to have that light coming from, and just makes it very versatile in being able to mount it. And I'll use this as an accent light, or just as a filming light, but I also have another light connected to my camera rig by way of an articulating small rig arm. Power wise, we do have a couple of options. In the back of the light you have this battery bay, and that accepts the MPF style battery blocks. I generally tend to use the ones from Sony, and they quite simply fit in to that bay in the standard way. And then on top of the light you actually have, then if you want to disengage the battery, you have this little button, and just by pressing that you can just slide the battery out of the bay. In conjunction with the included USB-C cable, we can plug that in here, Boom. Now you can also run it with a D-tap, but I don't really do much D-tap fixtures. So if I'm going to run it for a long period, I can then put it into my into a power bank. Okay, where are we? Power bank. Boom, there we go. So I can connect it to a power bank. Now this particular power bank is 10,000 milliamperes. Okay, and this block battery from Sony, the MPF 970, is 6300 milliamperes. So I've got about 1.5 times the power capacity in here than I have in the battery. And get this, a 10,000 milliampere power pack, I mean, shop locally if you will. This one is just a generic brand, and this one cost me about 40 bucks. Okay, whereas these, brand new right now in Amazon, are going to cost you about 150 bucks a piece. So do the math. I find it much easier to use the power bank, but that does actually come at an expense. Okay, and what do I mean? Because of the interface with the power bank, you can only deliver a certain amount of power through that, as opposed to the power packs. Now I believe there is a power loss of up to 40, maybe even 50% when you're running through a power bank. Now for me, that's not too much of a problem, because I'm in a very unique situation where I generally only tend to film at night time in the jungles of northern Okinawa using my Sony A7S II, which, as we all know, is a low light beast. So I'm not really filming with very small apertures in those conditions. So the power that I get from the power bank, or from the Amaran Al F7, is more than enough when powered with the power bank on my A7S II. In a studio setting, it works a bit different, because you can then run it, if you do have a dummy battery fitting for the MPF style batteries, which you can then run through the mains, then of course you're going to get full power usage from the light to suit whatever need you desire. Okay, now as I mentioned, the Aputure Amaran Al F7 offers itself very nicely as an accent light, as you can see over in the back corner there. But what about if I wanted to try and use this as a key light? And a key light is the main light that you use to light a scene. Now at the moment I'm actually lit by a Godox VL150, which is a video light from the Godox company. But let's say if I wanted to try and swap out for an Amaran and see what kind of light that gives us. So let's give that a bash in 3, 2, 1. So as you can see, the light, because it's got a smaller surface area, generally tends to be a little bit harsher, whereas with a much larger surface area on my main key light of the Godox, when I had that on just now, the light was more subdued and more diffused. But that's what it is. I mean, you know, it's this kind of vibe, I guess. I mean, you could turn it black and white.
You can make it look a bit spookier.
And so there is, you know, a viable option for it. I've had to open up my aperture quite a bit now. I believe I'm on about F2, and I'm on my base ISO of 1600 in S-Log2. But I mean, it looks fine. And with that little accent light in the background, it looks pretty cool. Now, I've got this light here set to a Kelvin of 5600. I done a white balance under this light. Even though the camera told me 5400, I believe, on the reading, so there was a bit of a discrepancy between the camera and the light, but it's a very small discrepancy. I guess if you just bear that in mind, make a note of it somewhere. If that becomes an issue, then you can always try and juggle between those two Kelvin settings to see what that does to the image, if anything. But I think the change is going to be so minuscule, it's not really going to be too much of an issue. Okay, now operating the Al F7 couldn't be any easier. On the side here we have a power button. We turn that on, and then what we'll notice at the top is that we have on the left hand side, we have 2 indicators, in fact 3, the top one of which is the Kelvin selector, and the bottom one, or the middle one, is the power selector, and the lower one is this green LED array here that gives you an indication as to the level of your charge in your battery. Okay, but let's go to the main settings. Okay, to switch between the two, all I need to do is push on the main control dial. and you'll notice then that there's a green indicator that will change between the Kelvin and the percentage, or the intensity percentage. If I then wish to change the Kelvin, all I need to do is dial in the Kelvin temperature I need, all the way from a very nice warm 3200K in increments of 100, all the way up to a rather blue looking 9500 Kelvin. And likewise hit the control dial, and then that's going to allow me to determine or to plug in the amount of intensity I wish to have on the light for the scene in question. Very, very simple. And then to turn it off, quite simply, off it goes. So let's just have a quick look at the Kelvin characteristics of this light. At the moment I've got it set to a Kelvin of 3200 at a power setting of just 15%, so I don't burn your retinas out. And what you'll see is that only half of the individual LEDs are lit. Now, irrespective of, as long as I retain that Kelvin factor, irrespective of how intense I make that light, only those half, or that half of the light of the LED of the individual LEDs will be lit. Okay, let's go back to 15. Now that's going to change as I increase my Kelvin. Let's say, for example, now if I want to go all the way to the other end, likewise at 95. Again, the other LEDs are lit as opposed to the ones that are used for the yellow or for the warmer light. I've got now, it switches to the LEDs that are used for the colder light. Now that only changes, and they all become in unison, or they all become powered uniformly when I get to a Kelvin temperature of 56. All right, and so now if I then increase the power, this now is going to be the light utilizing its maximum array of LEDs at maximum power. As you can see, all of the LEDs are being used, and all of the, through the whole power range. Okay, so there you have it, folks, the Amaran Al F7 from Aputure. A very versatile light. It can be used as an accent light, or even add a push for a key light if you're trying to set up a spooky storytelling YouTube channel. And in my case, I use it, like I said, as a tool for filming wildlife in the jungles of northern Okinawa. Now, it does boast a CRI, or a colour rendition index, of 95, which to the layman translates as excellent colour rendition. And it also boasts at 0.5 meters a 5500 lumens, which is also pretty cool. Like I mentioned, versatile, awesome, and if you're lucky you can find them still on eBay for between 80 and 110 bucks for a good condition one. I love them, and if I can find more, then guaranteed I will get them. They offer a great option just for playing around with light, which is what video and photography is obviously all about. But that's all from me for this week, folks. I took advantage of a rainy day here in Okinawa to bring you this instalment. Hopefully soon the weather will change and I'll be able to get back into the wilds, to the place that I love. All that remains for me is to wish you all the best. Please, if you haven't already, please do feel free to subscribe and hit that little notifications bell so that you'll be updated as and when new content is available from yours truly. But please do stay safe, happy, sane and healthy. And until next time, folks, I'll see you then.